Alright, so let's hope this video goes a little bit better. It doesn't cut me off and not save anything. So, the little last one you watched, there might have been like a gap where you think you missed something. I tried to recover it, go over what we missed, but if you don't get it, let me know, because that was computer issues. For this, we're going to look at day 5, so make sure you have day 5 out. We are going to find the equivalent fraction when you multiply by a constant, but you're given one of the parts. So in Zoom today, we kind of went over this on the bottom, so this should be kind of like review. We're doing so much of it because it is so important. This is the main skill you have to understand in order to add fractions, subtract fractions, find like simplest form of fractions. Anything you do, this is such an important skill. Okay? So how it works is you always have one fraction you know. So if we look at this first one, so right here, okay, we have 1/4. We know that that is both parts, my numerator and my denominator I have. So you know that's where you're kind of focusing your point of view on. 1/4 is equivalent to what? Some of you guys might know these off the top of your head. My suggestion, so that once they do get harder, you understand how to do it. Like I always say, do the method on the easy one, even if you don't want to. It will help you when you get to the harder ones, okay? So the method is, you have one fraction you know, and you always will have either both denominators or both numerators. On the first one, or all of these actually, all of day 5, you have both of the denominators. Okay? You have both denominators. That's where you're going to focus your first step on. You have 4 and 8. You're trying to find which number is smaller, which number is bigger. We know 4 is smaller. So I'm going to go from 4 to 8. If we're starting with the smaller fraction, you always are going to multiply. That's why I say go to the smaller one first. Sometimes you won't be multiplying if you don't start the small fraction. But if you follow these steps, it will always give you the correct answer. So I'm going to write them on the side. So our first step was find both numbers on either the numerator or the denominator. I'm going to write top or bottom on this. Okay, so that's the first step we did. We're working with the bottom here. We're working with the denominator. Step 2, find the smaller number. That means from these two numbers that you're working with, so we're working on the bottom, which number is smaller? We find it's 4. Now I'm trying to think in my head, how do I get from 4 to 8? You could do it in 2 steps. We should all know that 4 times what is 8. We should know that this is a 2. If you don't know that, what you're going to do is you're going to take your smaller number and you're going to list your multiples. 4, add another 4, you get 8, and that's telling you it's 2 times. We've been listing multiples all year, so you guys should be really good at listing multiples for this. For most of these, we don't need to list multiples. Once we get to some harder ones, which we get on the other page, we're going to start listing multiples a little bit more, but all the ones in here you really shouldn't need to. Okay? Once we know that 4 times 2 is 8, once you get that 2, check it. Okay, 4 times 2, what is that? It's 8, so that is good. Always do a double check in your head to make sure you didn't make some silly mistake. So once you have 2 here, we know from the previous video you have to do the same on the top. So when you do the same on the top, 1 times 2, you are going to get 2. And it's as simple as that. 1/4 is the same thing as 2/8. They are equivalents, it's just broken up into more pieces. Okay? Alright, let's try. So you're going to find the missing multiple. This is the next step. Okay? Forgot to keep writing this up for you guys. So, on this one, they're not really numbered, but the one below, we know that we have both numbers in the denominator, so we're going to start in the denominator. I would always sometimes just notice it in your head or mark it. We're looking at the bottom. 6 is smaller than 12, so I'm going to draw an arrow from 6 to 12, and I got to find what am I multiplying by. I always start by writing that multiplication sign because you are going to multiply. Okay? So when you find what are you multiplying by, you're thinking in your head 6 times what is 12. Okay? And when you do it like that, we know that 6 times 2 is 12. Or if you needed to, you could list your multiples 6, then I get 12. And there's 2 sets of numbers that we multiply by 2. That means I do the exact same thing on the top. And that means that 4 times 2, I would get 8. Okay, I know some of you guys don't want to show your work. Please show your work for a couple of these. It will help when they get harder. Okay, let's look at the one below. Okay, we're looking at 1/2 to get to 8ths. You're not always going to multiply by 2, and we're going to see that right here. It's not a multiple of 2 that we're multiplying by. We are going to notice that we're going to start at the bottom because it's not always going to be on the bottom, but for these it is. You're going to look at your denominator. You're looking at 2 and 8. And you're trying to find, how do I get from 2 to 8? So you're going to draw your arrow. Take a second and think, how do you get from 2 to 8? And write that in as what you're multiplying by. If you don't know off the top of your head, you could easily list your multiples. You start with your smaller number and then you find until you get to your bigger number. Take a second. Okay, hopefully you found it. If you didn't, you can list your multiples. 2, 4, 6, 8. I got 8. It's my 4th number down, meaning 2 times 4 is 8, and you do the exact same thing to your top. Some of you probably don't need to list your multiples. That's not something I'm going to make you all do, because you really don't need to do it ever unless multiplication is something that is pretty tricky for you. Okay, so when I go 2 times 4, you get 8. 1 times 4, you will get 4. So 1/2 is the same thing as 4/8. Alright, let's look at this one right here. And then I'm going to have you guys do the rest on your own because we're going to go to some of the harder problems on a different page. Alright, if I look at this one, I'm still working on my denominator. That's where my numbers, I have both of them. I have a 3, I have a 12. Your next step, find the smaller number. 3 is smaller, so you start your arrow at 3 and you end at 12. Then you're thinking in your head, 3 times what is 12? Go ahead and actually solve this problem. So pause the video, solve this problem, and find what is the numerator you're missing. We're going to go over it in just a second. Hopefully you found it. You should get 3 times 4, and that you would do on the top. If you're struggling on how we got times 4, you would take your smaller number, 3. You would list multiples of 3. Skip count by 3. 3, 6, 9. I got 12. It's my 4th number now, and I multiply by 4. Then you do the same to the top. 2 times 4, and you would get 8. So 2/3 is equivalent to 8/12. What I would like you guys to do is pause this video real quick, and since we're starting to do with more of the easier problems on this page, we're going to get to the harder ones on the next page. Pause this video and actually go through this and finish this page. That means one page is completely done now. We have done almost half of it, so you have 6 more to do. And then once you're done, resume the video and we are going to start on a new page. So make sure you pause it real quick. Alright, I hope that you all finished page 5. That'll be really easy. We're going to get to some of the harder ones right here. Day 9, 10, and 11 are all very similar problems. You're still doing the same steps we did on number 5, but you're just working with not as simple of multiples. Sometimes you're going to work with different numbers that are a little harder to understand. You might be working in your numerator or your denominator. You might have to go from which number is smaller might be on the other side. We're going to go through a couple. The first one is done for you. I'm going to kind of skip around because I want to kind of get to some of the harder ones together. So just make sure when you're doing your problem, you're actually looking where we are. If you don't want to write your answers on the side, you don't have to. I will be able to see it as long as you're showing your work. If you need extra paper, go ahead and grab it. If you're still listing your multiples, there's nothing to be worried about. That is perfectly okay. But we're going to start on number 2. Okay? If we remember back to the rules we just did on page 5, the first one was find whether the numerator or the denominator is you have both numbers. So if I look at number 2, I have both numbers in my numerator. That doesn't change anything I'm doing except I'm looking at my numerator to start. Okay? My second rule, if you remember, was to find the smaller number. 4 is smaller than 28. So you're going to draw your arrow from 4 to 28, meaning you are trying to multiply this way. Sometimes you're going to multiply the other way. Just not typically, but sometimes you will. Okay? Now, I'm trying to find 4 times what is 28. If you are really, really good with your facts, you will already know this. I'm going to list the multiples because some of us need that, and that is perfectly okay. So, if you're trying to find what am I multiplying by, because you have to know that, because you have to do the same on the top and the bottom. If you're trying to find what you're multiplying by, you take your smaller number, which is 4, and you're going to skip count by 4. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. I got 28. And all you have to do now is to count down how many numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 7. And then I always will tell you, check your work. Is 4 times 7 28? And you will be able to tell me that that is true. So 4 times 7 is 28, and that means on the bottom I need to multiply by 7. Now you're going to do 6 times 7. You should get 42. So your equivalent answer would be 28 40-seconds. Okay? So they're not always going to be as easy as multiplying by 2, using small numbers. You're going to have big numbers a lot of the time, and it's the same method applies, just sometimes you might need a skip count. Typically, it's going to be a multiple. Sometimes they're not, but we're not there yet. So you won't have any like that yet, where it's not an actual multiple that I chose. Alright, let's look at number 4. Okay, so we're going to look at number 4 right now. So we're going to scoot to the middle of the page. Number 4, you're starting with 2 8s, and you're trying to find how many 70 seconds is 2 8s. So now, first step, find whether you have both numbers in the top or the bottom. I have 8 and 72 both on the bottom. Step 2, find out which number is smaller. That should be a really easy one. 8 is smaller than 72, so you're going to draw your arrow from 8 to 72, and you're going to write that you're going to multiply by something. Now, you might know 8 times 72, or 8 times what is 72? You might not. So take a second and actually try and solve this. If you don't know it off the top of your head, list your multiples of 8, meaning skip count by 8 until you get 72. Alright, I'm going to show skip counting way. Some of you might just know it. You don't have to do the skip counting way. So if you don't know, you're going to start with your smaller number 8 and list your multiples. 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72. Okay, and then you're going to count down how many numbers until you get to 72. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 numbers. And then you're going to check your work. 8 times 9 is, in fact, 72. So I'm going to multiply the top by 9. 2 times 9, you would get 18. So your answer would be 18 over 72. Alright, let's look at number 7 together. All these ones are skipping. You guys are going to go back and do on your own time. But I just want to kind of go through some of the ones that take a little bit more time to go through so we can actually work through them. This one I'm going to show how you can skip count without writing your numbers down. So I'm going to use my fingers in a second. But first step, we're dealing with the bottom. 7 is smaller than 63, so I need to draw my arrow from 7 to 63. If you are really good with your multiplication facts, you're going to say 7 times what is 63. If not, let me move the camera up real quick. You're trying to get to 63 and you're going to count by 7s. You can easily do that without writing your numbers down. All you're going to do is your hands, okay? So your first one's 7. If I find my next multiple, 14, 21, 28, 35, 42, 49, which one am I at? 56, 63. And I have 9 fingers up. So you're doing the same thing, but you're just doing it on your fingers. You get 63, that would be 9. And then you would check 7 times 9 is in fact 63. So you would do at the top 1 times 9 and you would get 9, meaning that 9 over 63 is equivalent to 1/7. So whatever method works for you is what you guys should be using. If none of these really make sense, you should be writing them out, because I struggle in my head even doing it with my fingers. I'm better off at just looking at it, but if I need to like actually skip count by it, I'm better off writing it down. But some of you don't like to show your work. Alright, so number 9. When you get to number 9, let's look at number 9. We'll do that. We'll do 2 more. Okay, number 9. I'm dealing with my bottom. 3 is smaller than 18, so I'm going to try and find how do I get there. Take a second and actually solve number 9 real quick. Hopefully you've solved it. If not, and you're working on it, pause the video and then restart, press play again once you have solved it. you're trying to find how do I get from 3 to 18. Some of you guys might know what that is. If you don't, you're going to skip count by 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. You're going to count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you're going to check it. 3 times 6 is 18, so then I'm going to multiply the top by 6, and you would get 12. So hopefully you did get 12 over 18 as your answer. Let's do one more together. Let's look at number 16. Okay? Number 16. You are working on your top. 6 is less than 60. So you're trying to find how do I get from 6 to 60. Take a second and actually solve this problem. Hopefully you've solved by pausing the video. If not, take a second and do that. When you do it, 6 times what is 60? You should get 10 if you're listing your multiples. 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, 48. I'm counting my 6s, right? 54, 60. And I count down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That would be times 10, and you would do the same to the bottom. 9 times 10, and you would get 90. Hopefully you're starting to see that this is pretty simple. It's the same steps you're doing. You're dealing with basic facts. You're pretty much just multiplying single-digit numbers. Sometimes you might have 2-digit numbers in there, but these you don't really have that yet. The more you practice, the better off it will be. What I need you guys to do when you're doing these problems is actually show the arrow and show what you're multiplying by. Don't just write a number in, okay? Because I need to see what we're doing and how we're getting that multiple. It's very helpful to write those in because we're going to start using those in a little bit once we start reducing fractions in a few weeks. But right now we're just getting all the equivalents. So after we've gone through these, I hope that makes more sense for you guys. You guys can go ahead and finish this page. The next 2 pages also are review. So if you want to get ahead, go ahead and do those too. Or if you want to save those and do a couple each day, that works as well. If you have other questions before we meet again on next Thursday, please let me know. We're going to use some of this, so make sure that at least that page 5, page 9, page 3, and page 4 are all done before we meet. Okay? I will see you guys then. I hope this helped, and I hope you have a great weekend and start to your week.